Thanks, Kathy. I don't know how many of you have had a chance to meet Kathy yet, but when you do, or if you already have, I think you will find a lot of consistency in how Kathy is going to deal with the community and others around. I mean, I think you've gotten used to openness, transparency, authenticity, and I know that's not going to change. So we're really glad to have you here, Kathy. Today, we've got a few things on the agenda. First, I think we can check off a bit of an introduction from Kathy and getting to know her a little bit better. But the two main items on the agenda are to give you just a brief update on foundation priorities. And we'll hopefully move through that in about 15 minutes and then spend the rest of our time today, well over an hour of time, on the bigger question that we have, which is to have a dialogue among ourselves as a community, as a nonprofit community, as a group of players that are engaged in making this a better community. Most of us here are nonprofit people, but I see some government folks in the room, some educators in the room, and I look at us as a sector together in the work that we do in the community. To reiterate, our mission has not changed. I've been with the foundation for 11 years now, and over that period of time, I have never heard any of our trustees seriously comment on the need to change it or alter it. So I think that is definitely a point of consistency that you can expect from us going forward for the foreseeable future. And I'd like to remind people that you may think of the foundation, you think a lot of times about grants, but this is not just a grant-making organization. And the investments that we make in other activities are very important to the community and to rural Minnesota as well. Our leadership programs, which have finished their 25th year, are now in their 26th year of programming, have worked with over 6,000 people in the state. And that's a really strong and powerful network that the foundation has, and really takes a lot of value working with them and looking at the accomplishments that they have in their communities. Our policy programs, in the last 5-6 years, we've spent a lot of time on forestry issues, where we've managed to leverage over $50 million of outside investment to secure conservation easements on 250,000 acres of working forest land in this part of the state. That's a legacy that will continue on for as long as our legal system stands up and makes sure that we have a solid working base for a forest products industry here in the local community. And that could be making paper. It was making OSB. We don't know what that'll be in the future, but at some point in time, there's going to be another technology that comes along and starts using our trees, and the loggers are hoping it happens tomorrow. Also, communications. You know, as years go by and demographics shift, we know that rural Minnesota loses voice relative to the urban areas. It's just a matter of simple demographics. And in that shift, we take it as part of our responsibility and mission to make sure that rural doesn't lose its place at the table, that rural doesn't lose its voice, that media and other channels in the state get the perspective that rural has to offer. So these are all part of the core things that we do that benefit not only Grand Rapids and Itasca County, but rural Minnesota as a whole. The foundation priorities are listed up on the screen. What I would say is that the trustees have asked us, required us, to initiate an annual strategic planning process, meaning that every year we do an assessment of our work and then go back and look at our strategies and decide whether we need to adjust them. So we've been in this annual cycle for 3 years now, and I'm glad to say that in September, the board looked at our priorities and strategies again and said, hey, they look good. We don't need to change. So I can say that these 3 priorities will remain. What you can expect of the foundation, not just for this year, but my sense is that they're going to be around for a few years yet. I don't see anything on the horizon that's really indicating that we would change these. And so I'm going to go into each of these a little bit more in depth. And I'm sure you all love this picture as well. Allison, our communications person, came across this. Where was it at the Historical Society? Oh, yeah. So Lila, you're the keeper of the picture. Great picture. You know, Mr. Blandin, beautiful car, beautiful suit, must have been a dapper dresser. But we know he cared about Grand Rapids and that this was his primary place of interest, as it is with us. I mean, it's clearly #1 priority for our trustees, for the organization. It's our first priority, and you know, it's rated as #1 for a reason. The foundation will continue to respond to a very broad array of grant requests in the community. When we work with the outside world, outside of Itasca County, we're looking at a pretty narrow range of opportunities that have to deal with education and economy, or expanding opportunity, one of our next strategies. But in the local community, we'll continue to look at a broad range of issues that are relevant to the community. And last year, I can say in 2011, that 80% of the grants that were approved by the trustees were for the Itasca County area. Next strategy, or priority, is about investing in leaders. And think of the Blandin Foundation, you think of leadership training programs, but we've stepped back and said to ourselves, yeah, we're doing leadership training, but what about the other things we do as well? Grant making, policy engagement. These things are also about investing in leaders. And so what we've challenged ourselves to do is look at the investments that we're making in rural Minnesota in a more integrated fashion. So if we take leadership training, and you have folks going back to their communities, and I know a lot of you are alumni of the Blandin Leadership Program, but one of the common themes that we hear is that when you go back to your community, it's a challenge to take the theory that you've gotten in the classroom and turn it into reality. And that when you're working on community issues, community dynamics and discussion and facilitation are really important aspects. Well, our policy department, their specialty is working with community groups to move forward on items of interest that they have. Likewise with grants, we look at those as financial incentives that give people the confidence to act. You can come up with great ideas, but a lot of times at the end of the day, it does take some green to make them reality. It does take some cash to get them going. And so we're looking at this and asking ourselves, how can we build more around these ideas in an integrated fashion and hopefully take us to the next level and, you know, the old silos that you want to call them, and break them down. Next strategy we're calling expand opportunity. Now if you look at IRS regulations that have created foundations and nonprofits, I mean, what they say is that we need to be engaged in charitable activities. And from our point of view, charity is not so much about doing great things for folks who are already doing well. It's about expanding the pie and expanding opportunity for people, particularly those who haven't done all that well in the past. And you can ask, you know, how do you expand opportunity? And one of my favorite sayings is that for every complex situation, there's a simple solution, and it's wrong. There are no quick fixes. Expanding opportunity for people is a complicated issue, and we recognize that and believe that there are 3 fundamental issues that are wrapped up in our ability and our community's abilities to expand opportunity. And we'll start with economy, the one on the bottom of the slide there. It goes without saying, a robust economy with vibrant businesses, new ideas, good payrolls, it's what we all want. And the foundation makes a lot of investments in that regard. We invest in entrepreneur training. We'll invest from time to time in opportunities to expand the availability of capital, and a number of other items like that. But if we just look at our work and our, how to expand opportunity, if we just look at it from that economic lens, we know it's too narrow. That in and of itself isn't going to work. Because we know that as soon as you start talking about economy, you've got to look at your education system as well. Our education system is about creating talent. And it's the talent that not only makes sure the factory runs well, but it's about creating the talent that's going to create the next idea to build the next factory, to build the next product. And we have to have a robust education system that works for everybody, and not just the select few or the top few. And our ability to expand the effectiveness of our education system is critical. Finally, that brings to the concept of inclusion. We know from a moral standpoint that it's good to have equality. I mean, that's part of our civic culture. That's part of our civic morality. It says it in the Declaration of Independence, that we're all created equal. But it's also pragmatic. It also is an element of self-interest, particularly when you look at demographics. You need look no further than that. Within about 10 years, the rural workforce in Minnesota is actually going to start to shrink. The number of workers will actually start to shrink. At the same time that the percentage of our population that's retired is going to grow and grow and grow. And when you look at those dynamics, if we want to maintain our standard of living, not to mention improve our standard of living, the folks that are continuing to work have to be more productive than they are today. It's simple demographics. And today we have far too many people who are not doing that well. Not doing too well at school, not having the skills that they need at work, and it's in all of our best interest to do a better job of including those folks in success. Now, and most of our grant making will be in this area. About 75% of our grants will be going in this area. Almost all of our grant making outside of Itasca County will be dedicated to this strategy. Wanted to give you a bit of a budget picture for us. If you look at the first line up there, in 2008, we were doing about $14 million in grants a year. And then things got a little goofy with the economy. And we did a 20% decline in our grant making from 14 million down to about 11 million. And important thing to remember about that is we maintained the amount of giving that we were providing in Itasca County. That $3 million was cut from the work that we were doing in other parts of the state. So we stayed steady in Itasca County throughout this turmoil. The other part of this story is that it's a slow climb back. Even this year in 2012, where we'll be doing about 11.75 million in grant making, that is still significantly below where we were just 3 years ago, or in 2008. And it's going to take years before we even get back to that point again. We have a number of tools that we use to try and get a picture of how are we doing. And one of the tools that we are particularly reliant on is something called the Grantee Perception Survey. And many of you participated in that survey last year. It was conducted early in 2011. That's the third time we've done this survey. And when we did it 6 years ago, we were being compared, your responses were being compared against the responses of grantees of about 300 other foundations. And I can report that at that first survey, we were in the bottom quarter of all foundations. The second survey, we moved right up into the middle of the pack. This last time, I am really pleased to say that we moved up into the top quintile, the top fifth. There are 8 composite measures that are part of this survey, and only 20% of the foundations in the country are above the median in 7 of those categories, which is where we're at. So there's been a lot of progress in the last 6 years, and we're really pleased with that. We're really pleased that you are having a positive experience with us. And it is our absolute intention not just to maintain that, but to keep pushing it as much as we can. If you look at, we had another bit of work that we did asking the local community about the foundation's reputation, and 75% of the respondents rated us as excellent or good in areas like cooperation, collaboration, partnership, trustworthiness, innovation, and things like that. So these are the kinds of things we're hoping to see and that we fully intend to maintain over time. So thank you for the feedback that you've been providing. Just a few more things, and we'll stop and take a couple of questions before we launch into the rest of the day. As I've said, there's not a lot of changes on strategy, but you can expect a couple of changes in how you interrelate with the foundation. After 20 years of using the same database, we're launching on the brave task of putting in a new database, which entails a lot of work, but it also involves a lot of opportunity. And what it's going to mean is that you will be able to interface differently with the foundation. You will have, as grantees will have their own, your environment, your place, space, whatever you want to call it, portal, on our database where you'll be able to go in, change information, key information, contact information, and things like that. You'll be able to submit application forms there, monitoring reports, and the like. This will be rolling out later in the year, and when it does, we are going to do our best to make sure that we communicate, train, help you understand how to use it so that it indeed is an improvement in your experience. And secondly, Kathy Annette has been here for 4 months, but she's already making some changes. She says, Wade, you need more to do. So I am going to be acting in the capacity of vice president for what we're calling a program team. We're pulling together the functions in the foundation that have the most direct bearing to our work with external audiences. So we're putting together a group that I'm leading. It includes the leadership programs, policy programs, grants, communications, and technology, so we can start utilizing technology more effectively in the way that we work with outside audiences. So we have posted a position for a new grants director that will be the person that's primarily responsible for managing all of our grant functions. You can find more information about that on our website, and I really do encourage you, there's probably people in the room who are interested, but I also know that you know people that would be a good fit for our organization, and we'd really love to have your ideas.